Hello friends, hope you're doing well and staying safe. Today I'm going to be answering a question that I've been getting asked a lot recently, and that is, how do I route my setup? So essentially, how is my gear linked and synced with Ableton, and how is that all integrated with the BeatStep Pro, the audio interface, and the DAW itself? So before I get into it, please leave a like, subscribe, support me, the channel, and get notified on future videos. So anyways, let's do this. Okay, so I'm freehanding the camera, so apologies if it's shaky or blurry. I'm on manual focus too. So anyways, I will start with going over how I have the clocks synced up with Ableton. So I have three parallel clock chains that enable me to sync all this gear as well as the Arturia BeatStep with Ableton. So when I press play on the DAW, all the gear starts playing. And I'll start with the TR8, and the TR8 is getting a clock just via USB, and it's also sending audio as well through USB, so I have no analog cables. It's just sending it directly to the DAW. And I'll post the settings in the corner of the screen so you can see how I have the MIDI preferences in Ableton. Essentially, you want to have your sync turned on for your MIDI output so that Ableton can send the clock to the device. So from there, the TR8 is sending MIDI clock out to the ER1 just via a MIDI cable. So these two devices are essentially on the same clock. Next we have the Electron Digitact. This is the newest addition to my studio collection, and this is getting a clock via a MIDI cable that is coming directly out of my audio interface. It's pretty busy back here, so I'm not even going to try to show you the MIDI cable, but it's essentially just going from the MIDI out of my interface to the Digitact. And I also have it set up again in Ableton. You can see the preferences here of how I have that enabled. Essentially, again, you want Ableton to send clock out. So this is currently not sending MIDI to any device, but that will change shortly. I just got this, so I'm still setting it up. But what I'm going to do is have MIDI out MIDI through technically go into the no, it would be MIDI out, yeah, MIDI out and go into the Model D. So I can actually sequence up to 8 synths on this device. It's got 8 MIDI channels, and I want this sequence the Model D with this because my Arturia BeatStep, this bad boy over here, can only sequence up to 2 synths. And so for me, those 2 synths would be the Moog Minitaur and the TB03. Outside of that, I can't have 3 synced up until now. So that brings me to the Arturia BeatStep right here. I love this thing. Let me get the headphones out of the way. And so with the Arturia BeatStep, that is also receiving a clock from Ableton via USB. And if you can see over here, it's kind of hard to see, but essentially this button over here dictates where it's getting clock from. So the second to the left is USB, which means it will receive the clock from Ableton. So here I have a MIDI cable going out. It's MIDI out from the BeatStep into the Roland TB03, and from the Roland TB03 I'm doing MIDI through to the Moog Minitaur. The reason I have this at the end of the chain is because the Moog Minitaur does not have a MIDI out or MIDI through, so it has to be the last device on your sequence. And you know, this setup isn't perfect, but what I want to do is get a MIDI through splitter box, because the disadvantage of this is I have 3 separate clock chains that I have to sync up in Ableton. I mean, normally you have to sync your clock chain anyways, and that's something that will change throughout the course of the project, because as you add plugins, you're increasing the latency, and you always have to compensate for that. But the thing is here is I have 3 different clock chains, so when everything's behaving normally, all the clock chains usually have the same amount of delay, so it's pretty easy to get them all synced up. But sometimes, especially with these USB devices, sometimes it'll be like a glitch, and then it'll be much more delayed or much less delayed than the other clock chains, and then that means that every chain has a different delay compensation. And I've gotten pretty good at syncing everything up quickly. It takes me probably like 30 seconds and sometimes even less, but it's just kind of a pain. And if I had just one clock chain coming from, say, my audio interface, and then that's split into maybe 5 different MIDI outputs, then everything is getting 1 clock. So that's pretty convenient. And the way I have this with my interface is I have the Moog Minitaur, the TB03 and Model D, and the Korg Electribe ER1. They're all going analog in to my Scarlett 6i6. I only have a 6 input interface, so it's pretty convenient how the TR8 and the Electron, they can both send audio over USB. So that means I can have essentially all my gear playing. If I want to do a live jam with all the gear, I can do that. And the way I have that set up is through an aggregate device. So you can only do this on Mac, at least to my knowledge. I think it's very difficult on Windows. But you can set an aggregate device, which means you can combine a bunch of different audio interfaces. So I have the Scarlett and the TR8 and the Digitech essentially set up as one big interface. So you get 6 inputs from there, however many inputs these are. It's like 8 or 12 or something. This has 12 inputs, so it's like a 30 input sound card. And so then in Ableton I can select all the inputs from here, everything from here and here. The only thing is, when you do that, you lose the functionality of being able to send the individual channels. So with all these devices you can multi-track, but when you make the aggregate device you can only get the stereo out. I don't know why that is, but that's just how it is. But it's still better than nothing, I don't multi-track too much anyways. I like to record like every part solo, just so I can mess around with it and all that. But yeah, it's a pretty good setup. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Leave it in the comment section below. I'll answer them. And let me know if you have any other video ideas. I'm always looking for new things to talk about. So anyways, hope you have a wonderful day. Peace out and stay creative. See ya.